So in 8.4, we're introduced to a new preposition, and it's called the preposition min. All right. Min can be translated as from or away from, all right? From or away from, sorry. This is a really awesome little preposition. Now, we're adding to our store of prepositions that we know, aren't we? Which ones have you learned so far? We can just think about that for a minute. Okay, so we've learned some inseparable prepositions, and those are b, l, k, right? Have we learned some other prepositions that we might see added with a McCafe, for example? Okay, good. So we've learned all, right? And you will see a McCafe with that. And we've learned L, haven't we? So remember, all means over, above, upon, as well as against or beside. L means to or toward. You frequently used with motion verbs, to or toward something. Okay? Great. And so now we get to add the preposition min to our store of vocabulary words that are prepositions. And understanding the meaning of min is not difficult, right? You can just use these two words for now. We're going to learn some other possible meanings for min later. But for now, you see it. You think from or away from. What's a bit difficult about min is how it is spelled, okay? There are two ways to spell the preposition min. And one is the easy way, and one is the hard way, okay? So I will refer to the first way as the sissy way, okay? How do we... What's so funny about that? The sissy way. The sissy way to write the preposition min is just to write the word min the way you learn it. You put the word min, the noon is there, and you add the McCafe. And then you put your object of the preposition immediately after the min attached to the McCafe. Okay? It doesn't get easier than that. That's the sissy way. Let's do an example, okay? Let's say we want to talk about a king. King is one of my favorite words to use. So, what kind of a noun is Melech, by the way? Well, it's masculine in gender, but what kind of noun is it? Yeah, it's a segulate noun, isn't it? Now, that doesn't have any bearing on what we're about to do with it. But this means a king. What if I want to say, I received a box of chocolates from a king? How am I going to do that? Well, I can do it the sissy way, can't I? What's the sissy way? Write the preposition min, McCafe, Melech, done. Easy peasy. Min, Melech. Min, Melech. Okay? What if I want to say from the king? And I want to do that the sissy way. That's not too hard, is it? What do you do? Well, first thing you got to do is you got to make sure that you have the prefix to Melech. That's the article, right? Ha. With what? Dagesh forte here in the mem. Ha Melech is the king. And then from is, if it's the sissy way, I need to make that a little bit bigger here, shouldn't I? Min, McCafe. That's easy. Min HaMelech. Min HaMelech, from the king. Anybody can do things the sissy way. I want to know what kind of men you guys are.
John Wayne.
All right. John Wayne. How about this? There is also the Marine Corps way to do it. Okay? This is harder. This is more difficult. You can do it the sissy way, or you can do it the Marine Corps way. How do we do it the Marine Corps way? This involves what's called assimilation. Assimilation. I like to refer to it as the Borg problem. Do we have any Trekkies in here? Anybody like watching the old Star Trek movies? You've got these bad guys in outer space called the Borg. What do? They travel around throughout the universe scanning entire civilizations. They come upon a vessel. They check it to see, is this vessel worthy of being integrated with our culture? And if they deem it worthy, then they will basically attack the vessel and they will force it to undergo a process of assimilation. The Borg never destroy anything. They always assimilate things. And so before they take over a vessel or a city or a culture, they announce, we are the Borg. You will be assimilated. Resistance is futile. And then they take over. And any human beings, they will inject with these nanoprobes and turn them into Borg machines, which are half human things. They're cyborgs. Okay. Anyhow, so the whole process is assimilation. So what is assimilation? It's taking something that isn't like you and making it like you, right? That's assimilation. That's the Borg problem. And what happens with the min preposition is when we add it the Marine Corps way, we're going to end up with a problem like this. So let's take the word melek again, all right? And let's add min the Marine Corps way. How do we add it the Marine Corps way? Instead of using a makaf to do it, we're going to add it directly to the noun without a makaf. Now, min is spelled with a final noon over here, but if I'm attaching it directly as a prefix to the word melek, can I use the final form of the noon? No, I cannot do that because it's not in final position anymore. It's going to have to be a non-final noon. What kind of a shiva would go under the noon this way? Min melek. Min melek. It's a closed syllable. It would be a silent shiva, right? Min melek. This is where the assimilation issue happens. Anytime I have a noon that is closing a syllable, right? And there that noon would be closing a syllable because min is a closed syllable, min melek. If I have a noon closing a syllable and at the same time it's butting up against another consonant immediately to the left of it, the noon will assimilate. What does that mean? It will become just like what? Whatever comes next to it. So the noon, when it assimilates, it becomes another what? In this case, it becomes another mem. So now, I don't have min melek, but mim melek. Well, looky here. I have the same consonant closing one syllable, opening the next syllable. Hebrew has a way to do that, doesn't it? Yeah, Hebrew uses a dagesh forte for that. So instead of writing the mems twice with the silent shiva, once that assimilation happens, I am just going to not write that first mem that represents the noon that's assimilated. I'm just going to write a dagesh forte inside that consonant. And then, of course, I'm going to slide my meh over to make sure that this is all written as one word. So it's got to be written like this. Mim melek. Mim melek with a dagesh forte and the mem of the melek. Mim melek. What does that dagesh forte represent? It represents the assimilated noon of the word men. Okay? So, if you're wondering, where did all the good men go? They joined the Marine Corps. Okay? Where did all the good men go? They joined the Marine Corps. Let's do a couple more examples using the Marine Corps way before we talk about what you do when you come to the article. All right? So let's take the word Seuss. What does Seuss mean? Horse. Very good. I want to say from a horse. How do I do that? Well, I could do it the sissy way, and that would be easy, right? Min, Seuss. From a horse. Right? But that would be too easy. Let's do it the good old Marine Corps way. How was that? We add men directly to the word. Treat it like it's the first syllable closed. Min, Seuss. Noon says, ha, I'm closing a syllable and I'm butting up against another consonant like this. I think I'll assimilate. Resistance is futile. So the noon becomes a copy of the somic. Now I have Miss Seuss, and then Hebrew says, look, ain't no use wasting ink and paper. Let's just write this one time with a doubling dot. So I'm going to make that my somic. How's that? Let's not waste any time or paper. Let's put a doubling dot right there. So, Miss Seuss. Miss Seuss. What's that Dagesh forte represent? It's the missing noon assimilated from the men. The Marine Corps way of doing things. So from a horse. From a horse. Okay. Are you good? You want? Let's do one more. Let's do one more. You have.
So Dr. Marshall,
Can you do it?
One of your new vocab words is the word nahar. Not na'ar, but nahar. Anybody remember what nahar means from your vocab words this chapter? River. River. So if I want to say from a river, what do I do? Well, sissy way, min nahar. Min nahar, right? What if I want to do this the Marine Corps way? I attach the noon inseparably, the men inseparably. Min nahar. Now the two noons together, this noon is closing the syllable and it's butting up against another consonant. It would assimilate, but look, here this is easy because it already matches the consonant that follows. So I don't have to change it to anything. It already is a double of it. But now I'm going to write it how many times in Hebrew? Just once. Hebrew sort of has an aversion to writing two letters twice in a row. So frequently we're going to see this written one time with the Dagesh forte there. And the Dagesh forte represents the noon of the men. Okay? So it's min nahar. Min nahar. From a river. All right? From a river. Maybe we can do this the Navy SEAL way now and add a higher level of difficulty than just assimilating. And this is where we have a situation like, well, we'll use the word that Ross gives us, the word ish. What does ish mean? A man, right? I can say from a man. How will I do that? The sissy way is easy. Min, makaf. Min ish. Min ish. From a man. That would be too easy though, wouldn't it? Let's do it the other way. The Marine Corps way. Min ish. Now what's going to happen? The noon is going to see this consonant that it's butting up against. It's closing this syllable, min. but the noon is also right next to a consonant. It wants to assimilate. Resistance is futile. And so, what will happen? It's going to try to become a double of the consonant following, and then you're supposed to write this one time with a Dagesh forte in it. Am I able to do that? Me, ish, like that with a Dagesh forte? No. What's going to happen? It's a guttural. It doesn't take Dagesh forte from anybody. So he's going to reject the Dagesh, and this short vowel is going to undergo lengthening. We call that compensatory lengthening. And it becomes a sere, which is a long vowel, to compensate for the loss of the Dagesh forte. So from a man, written the Marine Corps way, or we could maybe say the Navy SEAL way now, right, is not mit-ish, but may-ish, with a lengthened vowel here. It's lengthened due to compensatory lengthening with the loss of the Dagesh forte.
So the first one, it's not the second.
What's that?
Would it lengthen that second syllable, the first one?
It's going to lengthen the first vowel, right? It's the vowel before the missing Dagesh is what lengthens. So the Keurig under the Aleph is just the normal way to spell ish here, right? I've got a Keurig and a Yod. Now, if I want to take a word like Hamelech, what does Hamelech mean? So it's the king, right? It has the article. And let's say from the king. Let's just go ahead and do this the Marine Corps way, which is I add the min, but the noon of the min will assimilate and become a doubling dot in the first consonant. Can I do that in Hebrew though? Can I put a Dagesh forte there that represents the noon of min? No. Why? Hey is a guttural. It's going to reject the Dagesh forte here. When it does, what will happen to my short Keurig? Yes, it will compensatorily lengthen and it will become a long sere. So the way to say from the king is May ha melech. May ha melech. So here's what you really need to know, okay? Go back to min. Min is spelled this way. This is the standard way to see it. What are my alternate ways to see it? I could see a Keurig and a noon assimilated and it becomes a doubling dot in the next consonant. Or if I had a guttural here in the next consonant, the Keurig could show up as a sere. But in either case, the noons have assimilated, right? The noons are missing from min when I'm attaching it the Marine Corps way. It's just a matter of whether I have a guttural here or not. If I have a guttural, then I could see the Keurig becoming sere there. Let's do point out the fact that when the min comes up next to the article hey, it is not going to swallow the hey. So the hey will always be visible here. It's only the inseparable prepositions, bet, lamed, and kaf, that will swallow the hey, right? So just make sure that you don't try to get rid of your article here whenever you're attaching a min right before it. I want to mention something about this issue of assimilation right now because I just remembered it, and then we'll go back to what we were talking about. You remember we have this thing that I've referred to as the Borg problem, right? The problem of assimilation. This is where, when you have the preposition min attached to a word, let's just use the word Seuss, when the noon is closing the syllable, because min is a closed syllable, the noon's closing one syllable and it's butting up next to a consonant in the next syllable, that's when it will undergo assimilation. And you might be thinking to yourself, this is really ridiculous that I have to learn about this in Hebrew. But I want to allay your fears that this is a distinctively Hebrew problem. This is something that we actually have to deal with even in our English language. To some degree because of borrowing from other languages, but still I think you'll get the principle. Let's take the prefix in that goes at the beginning of words sometimes. If I talk about inability, as in theological inability, the inability of mankind to please God apart from saving grace, inability, what does the prefix in mean? Not. It's a negator, right? So in is my actual prefix. What kind of a letter comes after the prefix in this word? Well, that's a vowel, right? What happens if I want to prefix in to a word like logical? Do we have the word? Yeah, that's right. What process is that where the N becomes an L before an L? That is assimilation. Resistance is futile, isn't it? If I put N before a word like reducible, what does it become? Irreducible. How many of you say irreducible? None of you do, right? You just learn that this is the right way to do it. So we have illogical, irreducible. Irresponsible becomes what? Irresponsible. Okay, now how about this one? In plus movable. What does that become? Immovable. Did you know, if you know those words and you've ever used them, you have been practicing the linguistic process of assimilation without ever knowing how to explain it, right? This is not uncommon. And so when in Hebrew, the min preposition has a noon right before another consonant like this one right here. I was going to put an underline there, but then it makes it look like a pathak there. So now this looks really pathetic. Okay, so min, sus, I have this noon right before the consonant. What's it going to do? It's going to do what the in of illogical does, right? It's going to assimilate and become a carbon copy of the next consonant, mis, sus, but then Hebrew, when it has the identical consonant closing one syllable, opening the new one, writes it how many times? One time, and puts what there? A dagesh forte. Exactly. So you see, this isn't really so crazy, is it? It's actually a very normal language process. All right. So, does that make you happy? All right. Good.